Welcome to Rettle's Pub, where we talk about the spirits while partaking of spirits. Here are your hosts, Nate and Mason.
I'd like to introduce everyone to Ron Lennox. Ron's got that radio voice. I've got that radio face.
I've got the radio face too, trust me.
Yeah. So, history, me and Ron have known each other. We talked about this the other day. Over 20 years at this point.
Yep.
We actually met online. And we've only, I got to thinking, we've only actually seen each other face to face, 5 times?
Yeah, 5 or 6, something like that.
5 or 6. Yeah. Most of it's all phone calls or chat.
Yeah.
In the early 2000s, he and I had a forum that we headed up that was talking about leaving Pentecostalism, basically, and moving on. Then Facebook hit, we kind of moved there. But me and Ron have known each other for a couple of decades.
Yep.
And it's
that's
fun.
How you know you're fucking old.
Yeah. And what's cool about it is, we haven't talked to each other in 2 years till recently. It's picked it up almost like we never left.
Like nothing ever happened.
Yeah. That's the kind of friend we are.
Yep.
So anyway, that's introduction to Ron. And Ron actually sent us a recipe for for some inebriation.
A drink.
A drink. I'll let him explain what he sent.
I call it the Java Jolt. It's just something I threw together because I like whiskey and I like coffee and I like a little bit of maple syrup, and that's really what it is. You put the maple syrup in with the coffee, maybe about 4 ounces, 5 ounces, something like that of coffee. A shot of bourbon, whatever bourbon you like. I personally, for cocktails and stuff, I like bourbon called McFarland's Reserve. And for the coffee side, on top of the regular coffee, I also use coffee liqueur. And there's a distillery here in Leander, Texas called, I'm going to give them a little bit of a shout out, called Leanderthal, and it's named after a Cro-Magnon Neanderthal skull that they found here. It was a female skull, and they called her the Leanderthal lady instead of Neanderthal lady. So
that's cool.
That's where that name came from. But so they're based out of here in Leander. Some of their stuff is available at Total Wine. Their coffee liqueur is called Java Agave, so it's an agave spirit. You can't call it tequila, and you can't call it mezcal because it's not produced in Mexico, so they call it an agave spirit. But it's essentially the same thing. And they steep it with coffee and a little bit of sugar for the liqueur, but it's fucking fantastic. You can find it, get it. If not, Kahlua works great. So you put them together, you shake it up in a shaker over some ice, get it nice and cold, and then drizzle it over ice in your cup, and then drizzle some heavy cream over top of it just to give it a little extra coffee flavor, like a regular coffee. And unfortunately, I don't have a see-through glass, but it's damn good.
So we got the recipe. Les went to go shopping for it. She couldn't find everything exactly, so we used Bonfire Bourbon. They're from College Station.
Okay.
The coffee we used was Snickers flavored from Keurig. And we used, what is this? Cold brew horchata cream liqueur.
Okay. Yeah.
Cayman Reef Premium.
Yeah. I bet that's good.
Yeah, it tastes pretty good. And I've already took a sip. Adam, what you think? Or Mason, what you think?
So you approve?
And I don't even like coffee stuff. Let me get that off my face.
That's good.
Right?
That's really good.
Right?
I could hurt myself.
That's a great one for the morning when you're sitting outside and doing like I'm doing, smoking a cigar in the morning in the beautiful sunshine before it gets too hot.
We'll have to do this again sometime, Ron, because I have a friend of mine that's going to bring me a couple of cigars. And we can have a cigar time.
Hey, maybe we need to do it.
What kind of cigar are you enjoying right now?
Oh.
Lunatic. That matches.
Uh-huh.
It's like, are you
It's
sure you
called,
didn't make it?
The brand is JFR, so I think it stands for just for retail. This is one of their biggest cigars they make. It's an 8-inch by 80 ring, so the ring is this, and this is 8 inches long. They make a 10 by 100, so it's even bigger than this. But these are about $10, $10-12, depending on where you get them, which is cheap for something this huge. I call it my BBC, my big black cigar, instead of big black something else.
We got you.
Mhm.
This is a family show.
That's not what I heard.
Yeah, but we're not.
I heard Jesus is getting pervy out there and filling you up and stuff. So that's not what I heard.
Yes,
so what started the cigar enjoyment?
Well, I used to be a cigarette smoker a long time ago. I quit about the time I got, folks like us use terms like back in church. I quit about the same time I got back in church. I think it was about 2002. And I'd been a smoker 15, 20 years, something like that at that point. Started as a kid, whatever, because it was cool. But after, I don't know, it was probably 7 or 8 years hanging around with a friend who was a newer friend who, after I got back out of church, and I done backslid, hanging out with a friend, and he was smoking a cigar, and he's like, I've had them when I was younger, but after that, it was like, that's kind of, it helped relax me, and I was getting into home brewing at the time, so it was nice to be able to enjoy one of these while you're brewing some beer. It's going to take 3 hours to brew it usually, so you need to do something. So instead of smoking cigarettes, I picked up cigars, because they're not quite as unhealthy as cigarettes are, because they're actual tobacco and not chemicals wrapped around paper. So yeah, I enjoy it. Sometimes I smoke maybe 2 or 3 in a day, and sometimes I'll go a week without smoking one. It just depends. But
so is that a one-time deal?
Huh?
You're like, if you have one cigar, you just do it all at one time, or can you?
Yeah. You don't want to really. There are times when I have to stop, mid cigar or something, and I'll use like a cutter to cut off the burnt end, just the tip of the burnt end, and
That's what she said.
I'll relight it later, but it's it doesn't taste great. But
She also said that.
what's that? I didn't hear you.
You said it didn't taste great. I'm like, yeah, that's what she said.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ron, you talked about getting back in church.
Yeah.
Kind of talk about your beginnings and all that stuff, and
Where I started.
yeah.
How far do you want to go back? Because I grew up going to a Methodist church as a kid, and going to Catholic service with my grandmother, Catholic mass as a child as well. But I didn't know nothing about religion, real religion, or whatever you want to call it, spirituality or anything like that. It was all about just repeating what the preacher says, the pastor, priest, whatever. But I think I started getting curious probably in my late teens about God, and trying to understand a little bit. I wouldn't say I was hungry. I was just, I was curious. And so, I started just looking around, and it turns out I had never known this, but one of my buddies at the time, one of my best friends, Mark Manuel, lived up the road from me. His father was a born-again Christian, and he and I kind of started talking about stuff a little bit, and he said, he didn't try to convert me or try to push anything on me. He's like, if you're interested, here, I know of a church, local one, that you should check it out if you're interested. So it was like a small group of believers that, they called it Jesus is Lord Fellowship or something like that. I can't remember specifically, but It was just a tiny one. It was like in an A-frame house up in New Windsor, New York, where I'm originally from, that whole area. And I just started going, and I started picking up on things and got interested. And I'm the kind of person that when I get kind of gung-ho about something, I gotta dive into it a little bit and kind of get deep, and not deep, but kind of buried in it. And so I got a little buried into it. I bought a couple Bibles and a couple Bible study things or whatever. And in the process of doing that and kind of hanging out with these people a little bit, I started to learn a little bit more about churchy stuff. And at some point, some friends of one of the I wouldn't say higher ups in the church, but one of the most well-liked people, friends of theirs, came a couple times, and they had originally gone to we grew up, I think, in our circles, we call them holiness churches, right? Pentecostal, old school standards and all that shit. They originally, had gone to those kinds of churches and started hanging around with those people a little bit more because they were deeper, and started, just learning from them. And, we had prayer meetings at their house or whatever, and got really good friends with them. And then I started going to their church, the church that they used to go to, I guess, in a little place called Mahwah, New Jersey. A lot of Native American names up there, but Mahwah is a tribe of Native Americans from there, and they called the town Mahwah. But so it was Mahwah Full Gospel Church, and they were holiness, but they were trinitarian holiness. So they believed everything that the UPC did, except for Acts 2:38, Jesus name baptism. Otherwise, it's the same thing, right? They baptized in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost instead. But they also believed in speaking in tongues and all that stuff, just like the UPC does. But they were Trinitarian versus oneness when it comes to the nature of God, or Godhead, whatever you want to call it. So I went there a few years, and then after a while I was like, I'm young, I'm in my early 20s, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to be free. I want to live my life and not be hampered by all these rules and stuff like that. And spent a number of years, as we say, backslid, and in the process, those years, I moved to Austin, Texas from upstate New York. A buddy of mine, a guy named Steve Bingham, he and I were really good, like best friends for the longest time up there. We had been talking for a couple years about getting the hell out of New York because the attitude sucked at the time. Wasn't really a lot of financial opportunity for folks that didn't have degrees, and neither one of us had a degree at the time. So he had a friend, or I'm sorry, not a friend. All of his family was originally from Texas. He moved up there to live with his dad, who was originally from Texas as well. His dad ended up marrying my next door neighbor, and that's how Steve and I kind of became friends. My parents' next door neighbor, whatever. And we decided, hey, well, let's settle in Texas, because all my family's in Texas, and I'm like, I'm sick of the fucking cold. I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with snow. Getting up 3 hours early just to shovel the driveway, because even if it's a foot of snow, you're going to fucking work because they're not closing anything up there, because fuck you, deal with it. So I just, we both decided it would be Texas, and his brother lived here in Austin, and this was the center of the tech world, and we both had tech backgrounds. And so he moved here, I think, in February of '98, I was involved with a girl who things were going pretty good, and I was like, yeah, I can't leave yet. I don't want to leave yet. I want to see how this goes. Well, I should have come, but I didn't. So I came down in August later on and moved in with him and his brother for a number of, I think it was about 2 years, a year and a half, something like that. Anyway, so that's what brought me down here. Anyway, you know, I was still doing my I'm young thing, and I want to, you know, meet all the chicks and all that stuff back when I was skinny and good looking. And ended up hanging out with this girl, met her online. Her name was Sarah. She was a backslider as well, turns out. She was from a UPC church in Florida. She had moved to Austin to get away from her ex-husband, who literally tried to kill her and their son. So she moved here, and, you know, we started talking. We shared our stories, and it was like, she's my sister now. I can't date her. You know what I mean? Not because of the religious thing, but because the bond that we had a very good friendship, and it was like, all right, you know, she's my sister now. Well, it turns out she ended up, after a couple years of knowing one another, she ended up going to Christian Life Church down in South Austin, where big name in the UPC, or formerly UPC, Rex Johnson is the senior pastor. And she had, you know, started going there, and I was not having it at the time. But after a while, I was like, you know, maybe I need to get that religion stuff back in my life and kind of get myself straightened out a little bit. So went with her a couple times, really liked it at the time, because it reminded me of, you know, what I grew up with, so to speak. And stayed there for, I don't know, a good 7 years. And then after a while, you know, I don't know, they became more charismatic when it comes to, like, the TBN preachers, where they're kind of about money, a lot of money, you know, and I'm not saying they were, I'm saying I don't want to discredit them or anything like that, but to me, it felt that way. Right, because they were trying to build a new building. They wanted to expand, and they wanted to bring more people in, but it was all about the way that they were doing it. Well, I found out one day that they were selling dinners with the pastor to raise money for the building program, and I was like, I think this is the straw that broke the camel's back for me. You know, they can do whatever the hell they want to do. But at the time, I just felt like that was wrong, and it felt weird. It felt weird going there now, like these spiritual authorities, and they're doing this shit, and I'm like, okay, well, I think I'm done. So I left, but I was friends with and I'm sorry I'm taking you on this journey. But during that time of being at CLC, I ended up becoming friends with a gentleman named Robert Allen, who is very, he's a not messianic, Hebraic teacher. So his thing was bringing, he was fluent in classical Hebrew and fluent in classical Greek from that time period when the Bible was supposedly written. And he brought out a different side of things for me on a lot of the wording, because, you know, English is, modern English is very direct in its, you know, its concepts and stuff like that. And biblical, what he was calling biblical Hebrew at the time, was very floral and very, very concept based, not necessarily direct and linear, right? So it's not like a black and white kind of thing. It was more of a, you know, these words give you this idea as opposed to this idea, right? So I really enjoyed that. I liked that because I was getting away from the legalistic kind of things, and I was more into the concepts of what salvation was supposed to mean and all that stuff, to me at least. And we became very good friends. And after, I was like, I just don't want to I don't want to go to CLC anymore. And he's like, why don't we start our own thing? So, he's like, I really feel like we need to give people like you and to, people like me some place where they can feel at ease without the judgment of the legalistic, Acts 2:38. If it's not like that, then you're going to hell kind of shit. Where it's more about, building a relationship with God, as opposed to, you have to stand on one foot and hold your finger just right in order to get into heaven kind of thing. Even though they talk about grace, they didn't believe in grace. So Robert and I kind of started, or Robert basically, but I helped him. We put it together, we rented an office that was in Central Austin that was basically an old house. Rented it on Saturdays because we did services on Saturdays because, that's the Sabbath according to, Genesis and Leviticus. It was the Sabbath, so we did it on the Sabbath. And things went, pretty good. And after a while, things were, we were bringing in a couple of people here and there, but it wasn't like really going anywhere. And I kind of got disillusioned with him, and I got disillusioned with that. I don't know. It didn't turn out to be the way that I thought it was going to be, and he started to actually get. He went from being expansion, trying to expand your mind to, oh no, now I kind of believe that we are under the law still, and we are needing to follow all of the Levitical commandments and all of that. And I was like, kind of like, where the hell did this come from? Holy shit, who are you? What happened? It took a number of months, I guess, or whatever, and I was like, yeah, I'm done with you too, man. I can't do that. I don't want to wear the little tassels. I don't want to do that. I don't want to look like a Hasidic Jew. I don't want to do that. So, I was like, well, that's what it's going to take. Then I guess I'm going to hell. So fuck it. I can't find the answers I need here. I can't find the answers I need here. I can't do anything right. So yeah, I was like, fuck it. And so I did my own thing. After a few years, I reconnected with him. I think he, he messaged me every now and then, hey man, it's time for you to come back and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't want it. Sometimes I would ignore him. Sometimes I would respond. After a while, I had gotten married to a see you next Tuesday woman. See you next Tuesday.
Could you see my brain? I was trying, what the hell?
Yeah. I'm like, what? Yeah. Can't understand normal thought, woman. I don't mind saying F, but I don't want to say the C word on here. But anyway, so we got divorced after 3 or 4 years. And I felt like, well, now I'm kind of back to square one again. And I reconnected with Robert, and I kind of helped him a little bit here and there. And it was, even after a couple months of that, I was like, this isn't really what I want to do anymore. I don't want to do this. I don't feel like he's gotten even more into legalism a little bit. And after a while, I was just like, yeah, nothing's changed. It's changed for the worse, in my opinion. And I was like, I'm done.
Up next on Reddle's Pub.
I'm done with it all. And I'm going to go back to being me. I'm going to go back to saying fuck every other word like I used to. I'm going to go back to being an asshole.